Today is the United States Army's 250th anniversary or birthday. Festival and parade here in Washington, D.C. Events have been taking place all day. The parade is about to start. It was moved up 30 minutes due to weather. The parade runs along Constitution Avenue right in downtown Washington, D.C., starting by the Lincoln Memorial. It will continue down, crossing in front of President Trump's reviewing stand, past the White House, and will conclude near the Washington Monument. The pictures ought to be spectacular. Army officials say the event includes about 6,600 soldiers, 150 vehicles, and more than 50 aircraft. Those aircraft will be on display and flyovers, weather permitting. Now, the United States Army, you might know, is older than the nation it defends. The military branch was founded June 14th, 1775. The Declaration of Independence was signed more than a year later, on a date we all know and treasure, July 4th, 1776. Today's celebration also, coincidentally, falls on President Trump's 79th birthday. The cost of this parade has been a topic of conversation here in Washington and across the country. And despite the Trump administration's attempts to make spending cuts across the federal government, an Army spokesperson tells CBS News the festival and parade will cost anywhere from $25 million to $45 million. Now, this parade will be broken down into eras of the Army's service to our country, based on 10 separate war times in the United States Army's history. So it will start, of course, with the Revolutionary Era and end with what the Army calls the future, meaning the future of warfare. It will culminate in an enlistment and a re-enlistment ceremony. There will also be a parachute jump, again, weather permitting, by the Army's Golden Knights, a concert, as well as fireworks. We're also expected to hear from President Trump. I want to go first to our Nicole Killian, who is along the parade route. Nicole, set the scene for us. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Well, Major, as you mentioned, we are celebrating many things here today in terms of the president's birthday, in terms of Flag Day, in terms of the Army's 250th anniversary. And that's really where the spotlight will be in terms of this parade that we will witness, which, as you mentioned, is starting a little early due to weather. And the parade we will see here will really tell a story about the history of the Army from its inception on June 14th, 1775. We will see displays marking the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, Western expansion, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Gulf War, the global war on terror, all the way, as you mentioned, to the modern era and the future, where the president will re-enlist new recruits and soldiers who are re-enlisting. So this is a big moment for the Army. Earlier this week, I was at Fort Bragg, where the president also visited with Secretary Hegseth, and that was kind of the pre-show, if you will, to today, where the president also there witnessed a great military show of force. He watched some trainings and demonstrations there at Fort Bragg, which is one of the largest Army bases in this country by population. And so this is now the culmination of that as we kick off the unofficial start of the 250th birthday of the United States next year. So there's a lot of excitement around this. In fact, a number of people have gathered. There are still people waiting to get in here, we are told. But, you know, many people told us they just wanted to come out of a sense of curiosity. I mean, this is something that many people haven't seen before. We know President Trump tried to hold a military parade like this during his first term, but got some pushback from local officials in terms of some of the military equipment and what kind of impact that would have on the street. So ultimately, there was a salute to America at the White House, where there were military flyovers, but it certainly wasn't on the scale of this. So there is a lot of excitement here in the crowd. Some people are military, some people are not. Some people have military in their family, but really they just wanted to come and kind of see what this is all about. Of course, we are dealing with the element of starting to get a little windy. So again, that's why this parade is kicking off a little earlier than usual. And also important to mention, because you can probably see behind me, not only do we have military, but we also have law enforcement here. A great show of security. You know, this is deemed a national special security event. Usually we see this type of security, for instance, with things like the inauguration, where you have federal, state, and local law enforcement all working together. This is a designated designation by the Department of Homeland Security. So a lot of security to get into this event, especially in light of some of the protests that are happening around the country.
This is the Secretary of the Army. There are VIP introductions going on that very large viewing platform right on Constitution Avenue. At the control room will let me know, can we listen in to the voice who is introducing our special guest? Okay, we'll do that right now. Listen in.
United States, Ushevats, and their 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, to honor America, would you please rise for the singing of our national anthem?
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Where the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets Say,
Army Staff Sergeant Caroline Nielsen with a stirring rendition of the national anthem. I want to go to our White House reporter, Willie James Inman, on the reviewing stand. Willie James?
Hey there, Major. Good to be with you. Well, just moments ago, as you saw along with us here, the President and the First Lady coming out to cheers of USA, USA, a warm welcome for both the President and the Vice President and the Vice President's family as well. We, of course, know that this is the military parade that Trump has wanted for years. It was in France back in 2017, and if I'm not mistaken, he saw that grand military parade, and he wanted something here in the United States. That did not happen his first term, but now it's happening on the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. President Trump essentially saying that people shouldn't protest this event. People have really been talking about the price tag of such an event, up to $45 million, but President Trump, White House officials maintain that this is a way to not only show off America's military might, but to show how the U.S. Army has had an influence and also an important role in defending our country and maintaining freedom. Major.
Willie James, can you tell us from your vantage point what kind of crowd size is around you or around this parade event?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you can see the crowd behind me here, but there are also people gathered just in front of the Washington Monument, which is off to my right shoulder here. People gathered to try to see what they can. Of course, we're standing here on the riser with other members of the press. We did see a lot of folks. You see a lot of folks gathered here to our right, all along the parade route. They have special sections reserved for individuals who perhaps have a lot more access than others. We did see a lot of the president's supporters here, a lot of people wearing Trump hats, wearing a Trump campaign memorabilia, wearing those T-shirts. So a lot of people here that support this president and perhaps happy to see him, but also happy to see those U.S. troops who really put their lives on the line every day for us all throughout this country, Major.
Willie James Inman on the parade route on the reviewing stand. Thank you so much. There is, of course, a broader national context to what's playing out here in Washington. Yes, it's the president's birthday. Yes, it's the 250th birthday of the United States Army. Yes, we're preparing to celebrate the 250th birthday of our country, and it's Flag Day. But there are also National Guard forces in Los Angeles. Marines are there too. Both of those deployments against the wishes of local and state officials. This has created a broader national conversation about the propriety and the images from this particular event. One of the parts of that is protests going on across our country called No Kings, meaning there is something that parts of our country feel uncomfortable about with this president, his approach to federal power, and maybe what it all means in the context of this parade. I want to go to Adam Yamaguchi, who is in Los Angeles at the site of one of those protests. Adam, what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's a much different atmosphere, tone, and tenor than what you're seeing at the parade in Washington, D.C. There are upwards of 20,000 or so people who are thought to have been here at the No Kings protest in L.A. earlier in the day. The protest ended about an hour ago, and so many people left, but many thousands have remained, and they've all descended from the main protest site down to the federal building here, which is, of course, the site of the protests that we saw here in L.A. over the last week or so. Now, there's still a lot of anger, a lot of frustration in the air. When you look at the signage, the flags, and you listen to the people, ICE, immigration raids, are the issue that most people here seem to be concerned about. Now, amidst all of that frustration and anger, what's compounding all of this is the presence, if you can see behind this large crowd, there is a phalanx of National Guard that are guarding this federal building. There are Marines stationed at other federal building locations, and that is again drawing the ire of the people who say, look, they don't belong here. The mayor of Los Angeles earlier spoke to the people of Los Angeles and said we need to maintain peace, and that in order for essentially, we don't want to create an environment in which President Trump would be justified in having sent the federal troops and the Marines down here. But given the fact that these ICE raids are continuing for the foreseeable future, the energy here is unlikely to dissipate anytime soon.
Adam, before I let you go, I know it's loud there. I know there are several people. You can see them clearly. They're agitated. But as to what's gone on that you have seen, peaceful or violent?
It has largely been peaceful. I mean, it's certainly boisterous, energetic. You can see that. But all signs indicate that this has largely been peaceful. But again, the day or the night here is young.
Exactly. Just after 3:15 Pacific time in Los Angeles. Adam Yamaguchi, thank you very much. One thing we should lay down for everyone, ladies and gentlemen, is the United States Army serves the entire country. It does not want to be a political football. Not today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. This event is to celebrate the long history, the storied history of the United States Army in our country, and the Army wants the focus to be there. It doesn't want to engage or be engaged in broader conversations about divisive politics. To that point, here with me on the set, James Laporter. He is part of the CBS News National Security Coverage Unit. Also, I'm very happy to have at the desk U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major Christopher Mullinex. And for everyone's edification, just understand, Major in name only. He is a legitimate Sergeant Major, and we're happy to have him. Chris, I'd like your thoughts on, from the Army's perspective, what is today about?
Yeah, thanks, Major. So today is about celebrating 250 years of sacrifice. Like you said, the Army's been here a year longer than our country, and we're here to celebrate that. Through the good and the bad, the United States Army's been right here with our nation. And this is your Army, this is American people's Army, this is America's Army. And that's what we want to celebrate today, and that's what it's all about.
And James, there are two schools of thought. You see military equipment on Constitution Avenue, tanks, artillery pieces. Is that normalizing militarism on the streets of the nation's capital, or is it a way for the nation to get to know its Army a little bit better and see it in a different light?
Those are two competing thoughts. The militarization of whether or not you're putting tanks and self-propelled howitzers on the streets normalizes military equipment on the streets. That's a long debate that goes back to the 90s when Program 1033 was introduced under the NDAA, and law enforcement started to get more military equipment from the actual U.S. military. And that's a legitimate debate to have, and people can have those debates. But also, and as you pointed out, the military and the Pentagon, these are apolitical institutions. They support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and they obey the orders of the president and the people and the officers appointed over them. And so what they would agree with is, for particularly post-Vietnam and the ending of the draft, there has been a divide created between what we call the civilian-military divide. And this is both under Republican and Democratic administrations have both said this, that because service is, shouldered by 1% of the total population, and then when you get into numbers about combat, it's even less than that.
Right. There's less familiarity.
That's right. And there is a divide between the military and the civilian population. And the military will say that we would like to bridge that gap.
And Chris, to that point that James just made, that's something that is part of what today is about for the Army.
That's right.
To close that sense of it's not estrangement, it's not a division, it's not like we're against each other, but we're just not as aware as we used to be.
That's right. It's about connecting the Army to the people, to the American people. And today is it's an opportunity that we had to bring the Army to the people. And we don't get very many opportunities to do that. It's making sure that they know that we're here, we're ready to fight and win our nation's wars, and if they want to serve, there's a place for them.
So one of the reasons we are so happy you're here is you can help us understand what we're seeing, because what people do at a parade is watch and observe. And I want to give this audience ample time to watch and observe. So what are we seeing right now, Chris?
So right now we're seeing the Revolutionary War era soldiers on the street and showcasing what our soldiers look like during that time.
And there's a kind of interesting visual juxtaposition there. On horseback, Revolutionary era soldiers in the appropriate garb of that time walking past Abrams tanks.
That's right. I could have never imagined that. And I love that picture. If you just, crossing.
Please.
Washington crossing the Delaware. That resonates really well, because what you see there in that picture is, our commander-in-chief, our General Washington would become the commander-in-chief, crossing the Delaware. Very difficult time. They They weren't doing well,
No.
and he needed a win. And in fact, the Continental Congress was losing a little bit of trust. They were thinking about replacing him, and we needed a win. And on Christmas night, they got it done.
Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, what are we seeing now? I believe these are the Golden Knights.
So we've got the Golden Knights coming in. I'm glad they were able to make it. It sounds like the weather worked out for us. See, these guys are incredible attention to detail, experts at their craft. And what they're doing right now is they're coming in, and they're sort of coming in like aircraft do and get into position whenever they're coming into an airfield. And they'll sequence in and they'll land in a very specific spot on the National Mall.
This is, we are told, designed to land at the ellipse, right near President Trump.
I think that's right, yep.
And when you talk about their precision, let my audience understand how that happens. It doesn't happen by accident.
That's right. It takes a lot of practice. And this is a very dangerous, one of the most dangerous things that we do in the Army is the free fall, the parachute. It's very dangerous things. And the way we mitigate that risk is a lot of training, a lot of repetitions. And these guys are experts of their craft. And you'll see them come in and land within feet of their target.
And as they descend, we are also seeing not only stills of the Civil War, but representations on Constitution Avenue of Union soldiers. Of course, as you know, Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, many of those soldiers represented states who showed up as state militias within the Civil War, but they fought in the Union Army.
That's right.
They fought under state flags, but under the overall structure of the Union Army.
That's right. Abraham Lincoln created the Medal of Honor during this time.
Yes.
And there were probably, I think, 1,500 Medal of Honor recipients from the Civil War. About almost 40% of our total Medal of Honor recipients to this day
came from heroism.
That's right.
During the Civil War.
Awarded to Union soldiers during the Civil War.
Oh, and so now we see the Golden Knights coming down. I believe we can get some very good pictures of that right by the viewing stand. If that's possible, control room, maybe, maybe not. There we go. There we go. As I said, that's one of the magics of TV. I call for it, and there we see it. Have you ever done that, Chris?
I am a static line parachutist.
What does that mean?
So that means your parachute is hooked up to the to a static line that's hooked up to the aircraft, and when you jump out, that deploys the parachute for you. And those jumps are usually around 1,000 to 3,000 feet. And these guys start at about 7,000 to 10,000 feet.
Born out of the World War II, correct? Like in terms of soldiers
right.
jumping out of, what were they using at the times?
Static line parachute.
C-47s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jumping out of perfectly good aircraft.
That's right.
To achieve a military mission on the ground.
And they did a phenomenal job.
So Nicole Killian, you are there, very close to the parade route. Please fill us in.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know if you could hear. I'm sure you were doing this a bit in the studio. There were a lot of oohs and ahs that came from the crowd here as we saw the Golden Knights descend on their parachutes. Joining me now is Juan Hernandez. He is one of those people who was oohing and ahhing. I mean, what do you think of this?
This is great. First experience ever. Here in Washington D.C. So very excited to be here and enjoyable time with my wife and I. So great time and an honor to be here as well.
Well, what did you make of that demonstration by the Golden Knights? I think they came down a little early.
They did actually came kind of early, but very nice, very nice show. So
yeah, pretty spectacular. I mean, why did you want to be here today?
Well, because it's a special day for America, for the country, and celebrating the 250 years of Army, so huge celebration for the country. So besides the president's birthday, so celebrating his birthday as well.
Do you think this should be an annual occasion?
Why not? It should be, yeah, right, why not? This is great, comparison with other countries that do the same thing, with kind of Army parades and, kind of this type of celebrations around the world. So yeah, big time for America.
And you're actually, you told me earlier, you're actually from Mexico. You
Yeah.
moved here to the United States.
Yep.
Have you seen anything like this in your home country?
Yes, actually we do have a celebration, basically the same, on Independence Day, basically. So we do have something similar, a military parade. Yeah.
How does this compare?
That's cool. Yeah. You know, it's okay. Can't say anything about it. You know. Yeah. But this is great. You know, great demonstration of the military and and the army. You know, so big time for America, as I said. You know.
Excellent. Well, Juan, we thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, and we hope you continue to enjoy the parade. Actually, I know we kind of get a little bit of a preview before you do and before the president does, but earlier we saw some units representing World War I, so we have moved on to that, and right now we may still be in that, but of course after that we expect to see demonstrations representing World War II, where we will see the Jeep, where we will see a number of infantry units come down Constitution Avenue. So again, quite a spectacle for many in this crowd to witness, Major.
Nicole Killian, thank you so much. And to Nicole's point, Sergeant Major Mullinex, World War I was pivotal for the development of the United States Army in its 20th and 21st century visibility and cohesion.
Yeah, that's right, Major. World War I was very important to setting the conditions what would become the Army that fought and won in 2 theaters in World War II.
And so many of and it was called the Great War. It was a shocking war because the sort of mechanistic way of achieving gains or not achieving them on the battlefield really took on prominence. It was the industrial age right before that brought sort of an industrial mechanized form to warfare, and that changed the way armies thought, the way politicians who led armies thought about warfare in the future.
It is. It was trench warfare. It was brutal. It was nasty. When the United States entered the war in those 6 months, I believe we lost 50,000 soldiers and 150 wounded.
Let's let this parade breathe, as we say in the business. You're here to watch? Let's watch with you.
Into the future. This car literally helped pave the way for the roads we rely on today and reminds us when the Army moves, the nation follows. The 1918 Dodge Touring Car. Headquartered in New York, this is the 42nd Infantry Division Band. At the start of World War I, the 42nd Infantry Division was formed with troops from 27 National Guard units, stretching across the country like a rainbow. Composed of skilled musicians from all walks of life and professional occupations, they perform a variety of musical genres. Though their mission is primarily a musical one, the members were ordered into active federal service back in 2004 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 3. The band has also served in support of numerous state active duty missions, including cleanup efforts following Hurricane Sandy, distribution support during COVID-19, and recently, support for New York State Corrections. Commanded by Chief Warrant Officer 2 Ethan Wagner and led by Drum Major Sergeant First Class Drew Gans, the band is performing Over There, written in 1917 by Broadway composer and recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal George M. Cohan. Representing the World War I era is the 82nd Airborne Division, based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You'll notice the unit is wearing replica World War I uniforms signifying the soldiers who served our nation during this time. When the Americans entered the Great War, our soldiers under the command of General Blackjack Pershing hit the trenches in the new standard. It was the olive drab winter service uniform. Now on their heads you'll see a steel helmet with sand-textured paint built to deflect deadly shrapnel from above. Not bulletproof, but battle tough. Nicknamed the Pershing boot, on their feet was the M918, 1918 French boot. It was designed to survive the brutal grind of trench warfare. And on their backs, the field pack, rations, ammo, first aid, and a gas mask. Everything a doughboy needed to fight and to win. Incidentally, the 42nd Infantry Division was deployed to heavy combat abroad and then deployed again in World War II.
Sergeant Major
Ultimately,
Molinex, we heard some of the descriptions not only of Army personnel carrying out warfighting missions, but also other missions related to COVID, relating to disaster relief. There are other things the Army does that does intersect with our lives that are not strictly related to warfighting.
Yes, that's right. So most recently we created and fielded the infantry squad vehicle. We may see that later. In that, its very first operation, 101st Airborne Division got them, and their very first operation was Hurricane Helen.
Hurricane Helene.
Hurricane Helene.
Right, the one that swept through Georgia and North Carolina.
That's right.
So they were there with that vehicle and
assisting. That's right.
In recovery, rescue, and other operations.
That's right.
James, any thoughts?
It's been said of Marines that Marines are you have no better friend. Marines are no better friend, no worse enemy. I would also apply that to the Army. I've covered 3 or 4 different hurricanes now, and the work that the Army does. Not only the National Guard when they get called in to help in disaster relief, but the Army is known for sending in medical units to do medevacs for people who are in hard-to-reach places, who are trapped by flooding waters. So I don't think people fully understand the extent of what the Army does during these natural disasters.
So we now have World War II, a pivotal global conflict, changed so many things throughout the 20th century. United States also crucial to achieving Allied victory in that battle. We have some flyovers now. Chris, any insights on that?
I believe what we're looking at is a B-25 and P-51 and C-47.
To the Doolittle raid over Tokyo. Leading up front, the mighty B-25 Mitchell. Up next, the Cadillac of the sky, the P-51 Mustang. From the sky, we're back down on the ground. In World War II, one vehicle led the charge, the legendary quarter-ton 4x4 command recon vehicle, the Jeep. You might have a Jeep in your driveway, but not like this. The U.S. Army truck quarter-ton 4x4 command reconnaissance, better known as the Jeep, was an iconic vehicle of World War II and was the world's first mass-produced four-wheel drive vehicle. The Army used the Jeep for almost every military activity, including command vehicles, scout cars, and medical ambulances. Fast, rugged, the Jeep became a symbol of American ingenuity. From Fort Bragg, North Carolina, this is the 82nd Airborne Ceremonial Band. The 82nd received the nickname All-Americans after a contest as it represented the diverse origins of its members from every state. This name remains today symbolized by their iconic AA patch. Fort Bragg's finest, ladies and gentlemen. Give them a big round of applause, the 82nd Airborne Ceremonial Band. In a global fight like World War II, the U.S. Army knew our troops needed more than courage. They needed innovation. Uniforms evolved for every environment, but olive drab remained the mark of the American soldier. Shaped by lessons from the trenches of World War I, the Army introduced 2 battlefield essentials: the M1 helmet, tough, stable, and built to protect under fire, and the M1 Garand rifle, powerful and fast. It gave American troops a very clear edge. General George S. Patton called the M1 rifle the greatest battle implement ever designed, and history proved him right. The 82nd Airborne Division. The unit is best known for their bravery on D-Day, when 12,000 parachute and glider troops destroyed German supply lines after fighting for 33 days straight. The 101st Airborne Division, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, traces its lineage back to 1918 when it first established as the 101st Division. Known for their ability to rapidly deploy across the world, the unit has held a crucial role in operations since its inception. From parachuting behind enemy lines on D-Day to leading helicopter assaults in Vietnam, the 101st redefined modern warfare. In the 50s, the Screaming Eagles stood tall at home, protecting the Little Rock Nine during the fight for civil rights. In recent decades, they've been sent across the world with stints as far as the Middle East, where they took part in Operation Desert Storm and participated extensively in the war on terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Screaming Eagles continue to lead the way as tomorrow's division in today's Army. The iconic Sherman tank is here, ladies and gentlemen. It was the cornerstone of the U.S. Armed Forces, showing its military might in World War II. It became one of the most influential tank designs of the 20th century. The M4 tank was nicknamed the Sherman tank after Civil War General William Tecumseh Sherman. Actually, it was named by the British. With almost 50,000 produced during World War II, the Sherman tank was in active service until 1957. In World War II, the M16 half-track was a force to be reckoned with. It was a self-propelled anti-aircraft.
I want to go to our Pentagon correspondent, Eleanor Watson, who has some perspective on what we're seeing and some of the costs associated with it. Ellie?
Quite devastating.
Yeah, Major, as you've mentioned, the Army officials tell us that the cost of this parade and festival that took place earlier today to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday will range from $25 million to $45 million. But that cost could balloon a bit more because the Army has also committed to paying for any damage that the heavier equipment, like the tanks, like the Abrams tanks that we'll see later, that weigh in at about 80 tons apiece due to the roads in D.C. Now, that price tag, of course, comes as the Trump administration is making sweeping cuts across the federal government, but the Secretary of the Army defended paying for that cost last week, saying that it is a chance to introduce a new generation to an institution, to the Army, which has existed before the United States of America and is in large part responsible for the fact that we have an independent United States of America.
Ellie Watson at the Pentagon Force, thank you so much. And to that point, Chris, there are those who believe, and President Trump is one of them, that there is a recruitment value to this event, that it will project itself well beyond today, and that could accrue to the benefit of the United States Army and maybe other of the armed services.
Yeah, I agree. I think that our Army is here today to show you that we know how to fight and we're ready. And I don't know how much it costs, but I know the American people are worth it.
And I've heard varying interpretations from those who serve in the United States Army about how much soldiers like to parade. What is your sense of that, Chris, honestly?
This is a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
That's a loaded question.
This is a lot of hard.
That's an incredibly loaded question.
Here's what I tell you, is when it's all said and done, they're going to reflect back on this, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be in a parade in their Army, America's Army, in the nation's capital. They'll have this memory for the rest of their lives.
James?
Yeah, I can say that when I was a Marine, there are certain things that I was ordered to do as a Marine that I did that I rolled my eyes at and that I thought was, for lack of a better term, dumb and stupid and a waste of my time. But looking back as a veteran, I appreciate them and I cherish those moments. And I think the Sergeant Major is absolutely correct that even if there's some within the ranks who, like, well, I got to go march today, they're going to look back on it, and I know they are. As a veteran looking back, and it's going to be one of the highlights of their career.
Because, Chris, some people have said to me, what we really like to do is we like to train, we like to prepare, we like to be ready. Readiness, preparation, lethality, all that's what our job is what we like to do most. Parading really doesn't fit within that, but you're saying over time you'll reflect on that experience, this unique experience, in a way you might not appreciate in the moment.
I agree. They will have this moment for the rest of their lives, and they're going to be very proud of it.
So we have Korean War demonstrations now, and Chris, just a broader point, because I think it's worth noting. One of the things that is true about the United States Army is in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, In World War I, World War II, and Korea, things didn't necessarily start out so great, and there was tremendous adaptation in the field within the command structure and with materials to get things better and to produce better results.
We have. The United States Army has a history of not being successful in those first initial battles throughout history. And this is exactly why the Army today is, every day our leaders are making sure that we're ready to fight and win our nation's wars, and is make sure we're ready for the next fight, whatever that looks like.
Which is harder than it sounds, because as we have all learned observing what's gone on in Ukraine, the idea of what that war was going to look like before it started is not the way it's played out. And there have been lots of advancements, technological and otherwise, that are changing the way everyone has to think about what that next battle that might involve the United States will look like.
And we're capturing all those lessons learned, and we're taking all those in, and we're using that to make our Army better. It's essentially World War I trench warfare with modern technology, and we're learning a ton from that war. So that, and we're going to, our goal is to stay ahead of our adversaries and be the best Army in the war, and that's how you truly create deterrence, is by staying ahead.
And we have Vietnam coming up, and I don't want us to skip Korea because it was an important conflict. It was the first post-World War II conflict, kind of the forgotten war. I don't want to forget it, but we are moving on to Vietnam now, and Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, yes. We are seeing some flyovers. James, if you want to jump in and let us know what we're seeing, please do.
So these are UH-1s flying over right now, and AH-1s. Vietnam introduced the concept of, they basically took guys out of the airborne and out of the cavalry and introduced the Hueys.
Put them in helicopters.
Put them in helicopters. And not only was it an incredible advancement to forward deploying troops and rapidly deploying reinforcements, but also it's where we actually saw a cut down in battlefield casualties.
Because of medevac capabilities.
Medevac capabilities. The golden hour is what we call it, which was born out of Vietnam. So if you look at the numbers in Iraq and Afghanistan, right, the reason we didn't have the levels of casualties that you saw in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War.
Meaning battlefield deaths.
Battlefield deaths is because of the helicopter in Vietnam. We learned the global war on terrorism learned the lessons from Vietnam medically by using the helicopter. It's an incredible piece of hardware.
Anything you want to add, Chris, about the helicopter in Vietnam? It was absolutely a game changer in Vietnam, and so much so that the 101st Airborne became the 101st Air Assault Division, because that's how important it was.
Not just in terms of forward projection, being there first, medevacing, but also recon, gaining information from the sky low, correct?
That's right. And he touched on the golden hour, being able to evacuate we can't have dead Americans laying all over the battlefield. We've got to be able to get them medevac quickly as possible, under the knife of a surgeon if that's what it takes, so that we can save their lives.
Again, let's watch and listen to the parade.
Enduring legacy. Today, the band continues its mission using music to shape perceptions, foster trust, and promote national Army and division interests. Standing ready to serve, it remains an enduring symbol of the 1st Cavalry Division's legacy and commitment to duty. The band performs Hit the Leather and Ride, a march composed by Captain Robert Meredith Wilson. This piece reflects the cavalry's transition from horses to mechanized warfare, capturing the speed, the resilience, and the tradition of the division. From Port Cavazo, Texas, everybody, the 1st Cavalry Division Band. The U.S. Army deployed large numbers of troops in support of the Vietnam War.
Go back to Nicole Killian, I want to, because she's on the parade route and gives us constant updates and perspective. Nicole, please.
Yeah, well, in addition to a little bit of rain, we now have a lot of these big tanks rolling by us. So I want you to take a look. Just a short time ago, we had the Bradley fighting vehicles that passed by representing the Gulf War. We also have the Paladins, and we will soon have the Abrams tanks, of course, all powerful fighting vehicles. This is really kind of the star of the show, if you will, because we had heard about a lot of these tanks that would be rolling in. I mean, in terms of the Bradley fighting vehicle, we certainly know with respect to that, that it has accompanied American troops in multiple theaters and not just the Gulf War. The Paladin, for its part, sounds like a tank, but technically it is a self-propelled howitzer. It was first introduced back in the 1960s, but also it has been used on a range of battlefields. And then, of course, the Abrams tank, the Army has used that since 1980, but most specifically, it was first used in combat during Operation Desert Storm in 1991. Now, of course, there have been some concerns expressed about bringing some of these tanks into the nation's capital and what impact they may have on the streets, but quite a show of force here right now along Constitution Avenue.
Nicole Killian, as always, thank you so much. I want to go to Willie James Inman, who's on the reviewing stand. Willie James.
Hey there, Major. Good to be with you. Well, the 1st Cavalry Band just passed by me here, and I was excited to see them because I spoke to some of the members of the 1st Cavalry, that unit that still uses horses. They still use the carriages, the mules, everything that they used centuries ago. And one of the interesting things about this unit you'll find is they have one member who is a canine, the only canine who is a part of this parade today. His name is Doc Holliday. He's been with the group for about 2 years now. And I spoke to his handler, and he essentially told me that he learns with Doc as well. But he mentioned to me how important it is to serve, but that his family has served for 3 generations, him being the 3rd member of that generation to serve in the armed forces. So if you speak to a lot of the military officers here, you can really get a sense of their commitment to serve their country, and not just them themselves, but down the line in their family for generations and perhaps more generations to come, because White House officials or perhaps officials from the U.S. Army are hoping that this event, although there's been criticism about how expensive it is, that this event can showcase what the U.S. Army has to offer and perhaps give those recruiting numbers a boost and see more folks join the armed forces down the road, Major.
Willie James Inman, thank you so much. Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, 2 questions. One, so those in America who are concerned even slightly about the presence of military equipment rolling down Constitution Avenue, I know there is an answer from the Army that goes something like this. Well, we are showing our work. These weapons are real. We use them. They are part of the way we protect the United States, and you seeing them shouldn't necessarily cause you alarm because they're real. We have them, and they're necessary.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that's exactly right. Our countries, they might not necessarily, Americans aren't thinking about the Army every day, but they all do expect that we are ready and we know how to fight. And so today is an awesome demonstration of that capability.
And we've had some viewers text in or send us social media questions that go like this. Where are all these pieces of equipment and these personnel before they got here?
They're all over the world.
How'd they get here?
Well, they got here in a lot of different ways.
So I saw there were train cars bringing some of the heaviest tanks and armored personnel carriers, and then those who are participating in the parade, they were billeted here. I'm sure they're in federal buildings, cots, MREs, the whole thing.
That's right, just like any good military operation. And it's a form of building readiness, right? Because just like they got here is the same way that they would deploy anywhere in the world.
And there's some of the video in the split screen, not only the parade, but how the military equipment got here. So, and also, I want to emphasize for the audience's benefit, Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, that this has been in preparation for quite some time, this celebration of the Army's 250th birthday. It's not just because President Trump became president.
The Army's been working on this for some time. Over the last year, very hard, and then thinking about the 250th anniversary for as long as I can remember, the last several years at least.
Now, to that point, it is quite obvious to anyone watching this that this is ramped up and more visible because President Trump, as Commander-in-Chief, asked for it. That is a fact. How do you think, Chris, the Army views this as a recruitment tool?
I think that this is the Army, a way that the Army is attempting to connect with the American people. When you think about all the soldiers out there that are serving today, if you would ask who knew somebody that served before them, about 80% of them would raise their hand. They had a grandfather or a father or a cousin that served before them. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to connect with the other 20% who never knew who didn't have anybody that served before. We want to connect with all of America and know that the Army, if they're interested in serving their country, the Army is the right place to.
And you would want that connection whether it was President Trump or anyone else?
That's exactly right.
James, any thoughts?
No, he's absolutely right. Recruiting is harder now. The Army will tell you that recruiting is one of the hardest jobs in the military. It is. There is a smaller, year after year, there is a smaller pool of qualified applicants who can come into the military.
And when you say qualified applicants, James, help my audience understand what you mean by that. What are the various qualifications and what percentage fall below them?
So the percentages, I'm not quite clear off the top of my head. But, for example, we have an obesity problem in America, among our youth. That lowers the recruiting pool in terms of who you can actually recruit, who can meet the actual standards to come into the military. That lowers the pool. There's also, college used to be a big selling point, right? In terms of like, well, if you come into the military, you get the GI Bill, which I used a post 9/11 GI Bill. It was phenomenal. All my, not only was my college paid for, I got housing allowance, so it paid for my mortgage. So it was quite nice, but there's now more routes to college. That lowers the recruiting pool. So recruiting is at a point where it is very hard to recruit more people in. So things like this, to where the Army can be more visible, is helpful.
Eleanor Watson is at the Pentagon, and she has a couple of things she wants to throw into our conversation. I'm glad she does. One, on how the equipment and the personnel got here, and two, Eleanor, you've done some very good reporting about the trend lines for recruitment in all services, and including the Army, of course.
Yeah, so I want to start with first what I'm seeing on the street, because the Paladins, the Bradley fighting vehicles, and the Abrams tanks are representing previous U.S. wars, but are currently on the battlefield in Ukraine. The U.S. The Army's exhibiting some of the stuff the U.S. uses, but this is also currently in use and is an example of what the U.S. has given since the war in Ukraine started. They've given nearly 200 Bradley fighting vehicles, 31 refurbished Abrams tanks, and the Paladin, which looks like a tank but is actually a self-propelled howitzer, uses a 155 millimeter gun, which is the caliber of artillery that has been given in almost every package committed to Ukraine since the war started. On recruiting, we have seen an uptick lately. The Army, your guests can tell you, the Army has reached its goal early this year, reaching the 61,000 recruiting goal. That initiative for recruiting, that upswing in recruiting, started a few years ago when the Army completely redesigned how it was recruiting to get out of the COVID-19 era slump where they reached record lows in recruiting. They created things like the Future Soldier Prep Course that, to James's point about all of the problems with getting qualified applicants, the Future Soldier Prep Course helped with their tests, their education, and their physical fitness, so that when they tried to sign up for basic training, they could actually make it and enlist. So this has been a factor, an upswing over the last several years.
Eleanor Watson, great perspective. Thank you so very much for that. Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, I saw you nodding your head. Walk us through what what Ellie described and what you know to be true.
Yeah, she described it well. And the Army had a really tough decision to make a few years ago because we weren't meeting our sessions goals. And it's, do we lower the standard or do we maintain the standard? And the Army chose the right answer, which is to maintain the standard. And so what we did is we said, hey, let's meet them in the middle. We introduced the Future Soldier Prep Course.
And what is that?
So basically, we're taking a civilian, we're putting him into a program that's it's not basic training yet, but we're preparing them physically. We're preparing them so that they can get higher scores on the entry exams, and if they meet those goals, then they're offered the opportunity to start
It's sort of like
training.
an Army prep course?
It's exactly right. It's an Army prep course.
And it's worked?
It's tremendous success with it.
And has that been used by other branches of our military, or is the Army the unique first adopter?
I'm not sure if they started using it, but I believe they're looking at it.
And is it clear to you that if that had not been put in place, this deficit in terms of recruitment would have persisted because of the things that James mentioned?
It would have. It's been tremendously successful.
And for those who are not completely read in, why is it year to year important to meet the recruitment goals? What does that allow the Army to achieve? What happens if it doesn't achieve that over time?
Well, if we don't meet our sessions and recruiting goals, then there starts to become a gap where we don't have those young soldiers that turn into leaders that become senior over time. It takes 20 years to make a sergeant major or a colonel, and so you've got to start. If you lose that, if you have a gap there, then you have a gap in those leaders that get developed over the time.
You have developing leaders, but no one to lead, or fewer people to lead.
Exactly.
To carry out the basic core missions of the Army. James?
On the back end of that is I remember years ago I covered a unit where they were graduating 100 service members into their force, but fiscally they were losing 40 to 50. So if they were only graduating they were graduating 10 into their force, but they were fiscally losing 40 to 50. So not only is recruitment important, but retention, because as more people are coming in, there's a majority of people who are also getting out.
And why are they getting out?
End of career, perhaps medical discharges. They're moving on to bigger and better things. Things like that. There's a multitude.
Retention is also part of this conversation.
It is. And we've actually done well over the last 2-3 years on retention. Soldiers want to continue to serve, and so we're looking pretty good there. And now, with meeting our sessions goals, the Army's in great shape.
So we're going to continue to turn back to the parade, look and listen.
Special thanks to our sponsor, UFC. On September 11, 2001, terrorists destroyed the World Trade Center in New York City and struck the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. using commercial airliners. In response, the U.S. launched the global war on terrorism. The U.S. would stop potential threats around the world and take the fight to terrorist groups and the nations that back them. The Army immediately deployed forces to Afghanistan to destroy Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda terrorist organization and depose his sponsors, the ruling Taliban. The 2003 President Bush expanded the war to Iraq. Soldiers and other armed services overthrew Iraq's dictator Saddam Hussein. The fight to stabilize Iraq and prevent terrorist groups from overthrowing its new government continues to this day. The campaign in Afghanistan lasted until 2021, when U.S. forces withdrew and the Taliban returned to power. Over the course of the two-decade conflict, over 2 million servicemen and women, less than 1% of the American population, deployed in support of the global war on terrorism. Most of those who served were members of the United States Army.
Sure, I want to go back to the parade route and Nicole Killian. Nicole.
Right now we are in the global war on terror, and I just want to show you one of the last strikers to pass by us. One thing that is interesting in our last hit, of course, you saw the Bradley and the Abrams tanks. These striker vehicles are much quieter. I mean, I just paused. Obviously, you can hear the music there, but you cannot hear them rumble by as those other tanks did. We have a member of our security here who is an Army veteran, so he pointed that out to us. But it is quite a noticeable difference, but certainly important to reflect on this particular time in history. Of course, a global war on terror launched by former President George W. Bush in the wake of the attack on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and of course, in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I was actually there on 9/11 at Ground Zero hours after that particular attack happened. But certainly we saw in the wake of that a lot. You talked about recruitment a little earlier, but certainly a lot of people joining the military in the wake of those attacks. And of course, subsequently after that, President Bush expanded the war into Iraq. So that is kind of the moment that we are marking here in terms of the demonstration that is passing along Constitution Avenue. Again, a continued show of force here. But to tell you a little bit more about those strikers, as I mentioned, they come in 10 variants, including an infantry carrier vehicle, a mortar carrier vehicle, a commander's vehicle, and a medical evacuation vehicle. And depending on the variant, they can carry up to 11 occupants and reach speeds up to 60 miles an hour. And so they are also used, obviously, by the National Guard as well as the Army here. But again, just very noticeable how quiet they are in terms of rolling by, even as mighty as they are here along the street. So certainly we continue to talk to people here in the crowd who are impressed by this display and show of force. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people just coming out here out of curiosity to see the sights for themselves. Many people haven't seen military vehicles like this up close, so it is pretty remarkable. And I think Ellie raised a good point too in terms of some of these military vehicles being used now in other parts of the world, and it's certainly important for people to understand that as well from a foreign policy perspective. So anyway, the show continues on as we continue to mark the different phases and evolution of the Army over its 250 years. Major.
And Nicole, please stay with us. I just want to let the audience know the strikers that passed Nicole's position on the parade route will soon come before the viewing stand. We'll see him on the government pool cameras. I want to let everyone know the various video feeds you see are provided by the government. We don't have independent control over them, but those striker vehicles will pass before that Army reviewing stand where President Trump and other dignitaries are. Nicole, there were estimates before this parade occurred of maybe 200, maybe 300,000. As the feeds come to us showing the various crowds, there's certainly a good number of people there. Do you have any sense, based on what you can see, about how large or maybe not so large this crowd is?
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell. Of course, the section behind us here, if you look over my shoulder, is pretty packed with people, but certainly in terms of the mall as a whole, there is certainly plenty of free space where people can walk and roam around. So hard to give you an exact or precise crowd estimate at this time. I know in advance of this event, certainly the hope was that the totals would reach upwards of 200,000. So unclear if we will meet that mark or not. Certainly it's important to keep in mind the weather component as well. We started this parade about 30 minutes earlier because there were storms predicted for this area, even the potential of lightning. And we certainly saw some pretty heavy storms rumble through the Washington area last night. So that is part of why they wanted to get the show started earlier. We saw the Golden Knights parachute a little ahead of schedule to get out of the element. So that potentially could have prevented the totals in terms of crowd here from staying on the lower side. But again, we'll kind of have to see once the event concludes.
Nicole Killian, thank you so very much. Sergeant Major Chris Melinex, let the audience know when we talk about the potential of lightning, why that would have been a safety factor for any of the aerial displays that were contemplated or are playing out.
Yeah, so we made the weather call It looked like that we weren't going to be able to get the aircraft in, but it worked out. The Golden Knights came in a little earlier because they probably saw a window of opportunity to get them out. And then the only thing stopping us right now, it's not the rain, it's just the lightning. The same reasons why anybody would not be out in a lightning storm is you don't want soldiers out there either.
And I want to ask you a little bit of biography about yourself. How long have you been in, and how would you say your career has aligned or coincided with that post 9/11 generation of those who joined the Army and other military services?
Yeah, thanks, Major. I've been in, actually, June 24th, I'll hit 27 years.
Okay.
So 27 of those 250 years I've been right here with the United States Army, which has been a hell of a journey. I've had a blast, and it's gone by fast. And what I realize every day is I got, a fewer years in front of me, than I have left. So, the Rangers right there, if you're seeing them on the screen there, that's where I spent 16 years of my career. That's where I became a man. That's where I became a husband. That's where I became a father. All the good and bad things that happen when you're a young adult, that's where it happened. And that organization right there shaped me into the leader and soldier I am today.
And the fighting force that developed after 9/11 and its missions, and that, as we were talking about earlier, adaptations, urban warfare, counterintelligence, all those things were new, or not brand new, but newer.
Yeah, when we started off, and our first few deployments to Afghanistan, my first one was December of 2001, my very first deployment, and by the time, by 2010, the Ranger Regiment was a completely different organization. The experience and the things that they learned, the hard lessons we learned when we lost Rangers on the battlefield and soldiers on the battlefield, we realized that we got to figure this out very quickly, because this enemy is relentless and they're not going to quit. They'll do whatever it takes, and we figured it out. And so the learning curve was significant through those 20 years of GWOT.
We're going to listen to and watch as the parade continues.
The United States does not face the challenging international environment alone. Our network of allies and partners is an advantage that our adversaries can never hope to match. Over 80 nations have fought alongside the United States or assisted it during the global war on terrorism. The 10th Mountain Division's climb to glory began with its establishment as the 10th Light Division in July 1943, the only one of its size in the U.S. military to receive specialized training for fighting in mountainous conditions. After periods spent inactive as a training division and as a standard infantry division, the unit returned to its roots in 1985 when it regained its Mountain Division designation. In the 1990s, the division participated in numerous humanitarian and peacekeeping operations. During the war on terrorism, the 10th Mountain Division proved their mettle as light fighters through repeated deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, since 2002, the 10th Mountain Division, based out of Fort Drum, New York, has been the most deployed regular Army unit. Its combat brigades have seen over 20 deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. To show America's military might, they have one purpose.
As I mentioned earlier, this parade, this recognition, celebration of the 250th birthday of the United States Army occurs in a broader national context and a broader national conversation. Not all Americans are celebrating this particular moment, or if they are, they're putting it in their own terminology, which is, in this case, in certain protests around the country, no king or no kings, meaning that they see something about President Trump's administration of federal power that they regard as potentially kingly. Adam Yamaguchi joins us from Los Angeles with an update. He was with us earlier. Adam, what can you tell us?
Yeah, in just the last few minutes, we've seen a heavy reinforcement of LAPD sheriff's deputies. It's not entirely clear what transpired, but we've seen a number of those units push in, and we see officers here in full riot gear. They pushed the crowd essentially away from the protest site here in front of the federal building in just the last few minutes. It seemed as though they're trying to box the crowd back further in. They had approached the freeway, which has been a concern amidst these protests. But again, not really clear what is happening. Everyone seems to be stopped just about a half block down. I think we can try to get closer.
Please do, Adam, if you can get closer.
We're seeing LAPD officers. Yeah, we're seeing LAPD officers on horses. We just want to make sure that we're okay walking through here. You have SWAT officers as well. Again, it's not clear what that escalation may have been, but you can certainly see and feel it here. So everyone seems to be coalesced around this corner here. We're still looking at probably a few thousand protesters about a couple hours after the protest officially ended. But you can see officers here with their pepper ball guns. You've got SWAT officers over here at LAPD preparing with gas masks. So there may. All right, we're gonna hang back here.
Understood, Adam. Adam, and just to underscore the points you made, these are Los Angeles Police Department and Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies, not the National Guard, not the Marines.
That is correct, Major. What we're seeing behind me are sheriff's deputies, LAPD. There was a contingent of California Highway Patrol. If you look back at the federal building, the phalanx of National Guard as well as a few Marines that were mixed in are still guarding. They have not moved from the federal building that they have surrounded here. But yes, everyone here is state and local authorities, and you see more police coming in with batons.
Adam, we will check back with you if events require. I thank you for that on-the-scene reporting. Things do look like they're developing in a certain way, and perhaps it is just to encourage people to disperse. Los Angeles City has had disbursement orders, a curfew in the evening. That might be a disbursement. It might be something more aggressive. Adam, we will get back to you if and when events suggest we should. Coming back here to Washington, D.C. in the nation's capital, and the parade in honor of the 250th birthday of the United States Army. Let's look and listen.
Special thanks to sponsor Palantir.
The 1st Armored Division is, if you did not know, and I certainly didn't, America's Tank Division, nicknamed Old Ironsides. Command Sergeant Major James Light is part of the unit. from Fort Bills, Texas, and joins me now from the parade route. It's great to have you with us. Your impressions on what's gone on so far?
Hey, thank you for having me, first of all. And let me tell you, this is just quite the spectacle here. There's thousands and thousands of people out here to celebrate, their Army's 250th birthday. And I couldn't be prouder of what I've seen out of my soldiers today.
And just for everyone's edification, Fort Bliss is the correct designation. I apologize for that mistake. As you see this play out, and as the Army celebrates not only its present, its past, and its future, what do you want the casual American, maybe just watching this on social media or joining us here on CBS News 24/7, to take away from today?
Yeah, what I'll tell you is, across our Army, our soldiers are excited about being here and being a part of this event. The American people here have been extra supportive of this event, cheering for every formation that goes by. And I would like to say thank you for the crowds here cheering loudest when the M1 Abrams passed by. And so they're absolutely a fan of armor, and that's one thing that 1st Armored Division has a lot of.
Tell my audience what the Armored Division and armor in general means for a functional, successful Army.
Yeah, so what 1st Armored Division and our sister divisions bring to the fight is mobile protected firepower for our soldiers. And we have a unique capability of being able to penetrate enemy prepared defenses. And so we're a part of the 3rd Armored Corps, and we consider ourselves America's finishing force. So other units might start the war, but 3rd Armored Corps and 1st Armored Division and our soldiers finish it.
And Command Sergeant Major James Light, I asked this of our two guests here on the desk. I'd like your interpretation. Do soldiers like to parade?
Soldiers don't necessarily enjoy preparing for the parade, but once they're in it, they take great pride in being able to show their training and their discipline to their country. Right? This is America's Army, America's sons and daughters out here on display for the world to see, and our adversaries are watching too. And I think what they see is going to continue to help us deter aggression around the world.
And if it's not obvious, we should just underscore it in case anyone missed it. This is not your average parade.
That is right. Absolutely not. Almost 7,000 soldiers, M1 tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, artillery, aviation, like the whole gamut is out here, and it's really fantastic to see.
I appreciate your time. Command Sergeant Major James Light, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for featuring our Army. This will defend.
Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex here at the table. You were nodding your head. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I was just really, it was really cool to see James is a good friend of mine on TV.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
You're both
he
having
said
a moment.
Yeah, he said it perfectly.
What part?
Everything. It was great. And he's the part about the first AD. Armored Division, Desert Storm, they saw some of the largest tank battles in history, and they annihilated the Iraqi army. So old Ironsides, they live up to that every day.
And that is about tactics, it's about training, and it's about materiel.
That's right. Best equipment in the world, but it's only as good as the humans inside of it, and we have the best soldiers in the world.
James, any thoughts on what has transpired the last hour or so?
No, I agree. Tanks are a supporting mechanism for the infantry that goes back to World War II. In World War II, the infantry were overjoyed when the Shermans would show up, especially if they were against going up against like a German Tiger tank. The first AD, they continue that tradition in terms of supporting ground units, and it really shows. Particularly joint operations, where you're having both ground units working with mechanized units and then working with air assets. That it's not just a single unit taking the fight to an enemy force, it is a combination of assets.
And the terminology, I believe, is force multiplier, right, Chris?
That's right. And we realize as an Army, we're not going to fight alone. We're going to have our partners and allies, but more importantly, we're going to have the rest of the military, the Navy, the Air Force. We fight joint. It's about the entire team.
We're going to look and listen as the parade continues. As the parade continues here in Washington, D.C., as I let you all know, we would go back to Adam Yamaguchi on the streets of Los Angeles if events so dictated. They have so dictated. Adam Yamaguchi, catch us up on what's just happened.
Yeah, in just the last few minutes since I left you, Major, there has been yet another escalation down on the streets here. The police and the sheriffs are pushing the crowd further back. It seems as though there was no real instigating event, but essentially as the police were pushing crowds away, they started deploying probably about a dozen or so tear gas canisters, and the crowd just fled. And we got hit with it for a bit as well, so we had to retreat. So we're staying behind. You can see it's probably about a block away where the main contingent of protesters still remain. It's kind of hard to make out because there's such a heavy police presence at that next intersection. You've got sheriffs who have just deployed out this way. And so, again, it seems as though the police, 2 hours after the No Kings protest had officially ended, are looking to try to disperse the crowd and perhaps encourage people to go home and leave this protest.
And Adam, just to reset very quickly, what part of Los Angeles are you in?
So we are really in the heart of downtown. Right across from me here is the federal building. This has been the site of the protests over the last week or so. Right behind me here is the Civic Center, or rather the City Hall, and that was the site of this morning's No Kings protest. And so we are here at the corner of Temple and Los Angeles. As I said, Major, this is the heart of Los Angeles here.
And Adam, this is the sort of conversation you and I are having is about what's gone on in Los Angeles all week, this tension between the deployment of the National Guard and Marines against the wishes of the mayor and the governor of California. But what we're seeing play out is what those officials said should always play out. Let us leave it to the locals, meaning the LA Police Department and the LA Sheriff's Department, to make decisions on the ground about crowd dispersal or any kind of engagement with protest crowds. And that's what's going on as you're describing.
Absolutely. Out on the street here, we are seeing nothing but sheriffs, LAPD, highway patrol in certain areas. The National Guard and the Marines have not moved. They have been stationed around the perimeter of this federal building. But in terms of crowd control, in terms of dealing with these protests, it has all been local and state authorities.
And to underscore what you mentioned a moment ago, Adam, because I think it's helpful for our audience to take this on board, the protest went on. It went on without incident. It went on peacefully, but it ended, and I imagine the permitting or the permission structure around it ended, if I heard you correctly, about 2 hours ago.
Yeah, that seems to be. We don't know exactly what's happening down there. We have not seen any skirmishes, and in the moments leading up to the deployment of those tear gas canisters, the protesters were holding the line. There were no skirmishes on that front line. Suddenly, the police deployed those tear gas canisters. So, all indications here from the ground are that the police are simply trying to get these protesters to go home.
And Adam, you are a keen observer and a very adept storyteller. Help my audience, from the perspective of someone who has been in Los Angeles this entire week, understand what it has felt like there day to day in this particular unique part of the city where the protests have occurred and the sporadic episodes of violence have occurred and these federalized deployments have occurred.
Yeah, you know, there's a sort of a rhythm to the day as these protests have taken place over the last week or so. The day usually starts off fairly quiet. In the afternoon, you have activists who start coming out, and these are the folks who are, I would say, probably the most passionate, versed about the issues at hand here, which is about protesting ICE raids across not only Southern California, but across the nation. As the afternoon wears on, you got people who come out, who finish work, come out in the late afternoon, early evening to join their friends in protest. And then as night falls, there is a different crowd that emerges. And a lot of the images that we saw play out over this last week or so, the burning of the Waymo car and some of the skirmishes and tear gas episodes, that typically seems to be a different contingent, the contingent of opportunists or perhaps people who are just trying to stir things up, antagonize the police. Up until this point, we really didn't see anything but what was relatively a peaceful, on-message, energetic, passionate. There were a lot of expletives in the air, but again, it was very on-message and peaceful up until, I would say, about 10 minutes ago.
And Adam, underscore for the audience the underlying impetus behind the protests. The ICE, meaning Immigration Customs Enforcement, actions in Los Angeles, and how some parts of the community have reacted.
Yeah, you know, this is, as many have said here in LA, this city is really a city of immigrants. Immigrants form the backbone of the economy of various communities in and around LA. And so this, for many people here, the raids on these communities, I think in many ways felt personal to the people of Los Angeles. And that's what precipitated such a strong and passionate showing here in downtown across the course of the week. We have seen, I personally have spoken to immigrants of all walks who, for the first time, feel like they are being demonized in a way that they haven't experienced. People who've been here for 20 plus years, who came here, planted their roots, found jobs, had children, and are now business owners, small business owners. And many of them across LA have been hit dramatically by the fact that you have fewer people patronizing their businesses because people don't want to leave their homes. And people don't want to go to work because they are afraid of getting nabbed by ICE at their workplaces, as we've seen has happened over the last few days. And so again, I guess the passion on the streets really comes down to this. This felt personal for many people in LA.
And Adam, before I let you go until other events might bring us back to you, there were some tear gas canisters, but at the moment as we are speaking, no other further escalation beyond that, correct?
That's correct, Major. Again, we were right next to the line just moments before they were deployed, and some flashbangs here.
Right.
But no, we did not see any instigating activity on the other side.
Adam, we'll be back to you
And we're going
as
to try to
circumstances requirement. You get closer and you let us know if anything else transpires. We're going to take you now back to the streets of Washington, D.C., Constitution Avenue in particular, as the parade celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States Army, attended by many VIPs. The Defense Secretary, President Trump, as you just saw there, continues. Let's look and listen. Sergeant Major Chris Melinex, as we see these tanks go by, how many personnel inside one?
Yeah, so Major, that's the Abrams right there. And so there's 4 soldiers in there. There's a driver, there's a tank commander, there's a loader, and there's a gunner.
And of the 4 you mentioned, one I can figure out.
That's right.
Intuitively, driver. What do the other 3 do?
So the gunner is responsible for engaging targets, as you might expect, and then the loader's loading rounds into the tank. And then the tank commander is responsible for the vehicle and synchronizing with the other tanks
that are deployed in that particular mission, in that particular battle space.
Yeah, on the battlefield, they're all working together. They're identifying targets. They're all figuring out who's going to shoot what, and they're using their communications to be able to do that. And they're all working as a team is the most important part of that.
So, just to remind everyone, we are split screening what's going on in Los Angeles, which is the aftermath of a protest in the downtown area of Los Angeles. Ended about 2 hours ago, as our Adam Yamaguchi on the scene described it. There is now it appears, a coordinated effort by the Los Angeles Police Department and Los Angeles Sheriff's Department to disperse the crowd. Some flashbangs were heard just a moment ago. Some tear gas was deployed. The other part of the split screen, the ongoing parade here in the nation's capital, celebrating and honoring the United States Army. What we are seeing in Los Angeles is the local authorities pushing the crowd back. The National Guard deployed there, not involved. The Marines deployed there, not involved. I want to clarify that in case there is any confusion. Back to Sergeant Major Chris Melinex. So inside that tank, I know Army personnel are accustomed to operating in close quarters. That probably is very close quarters.
It is. It is. It's pretty tight in there, but they figure it out, and they're really good at it. And what's pretty fascinating to me is in those tanks in our nation's capital, there could be, I don't know who's driving them, but the youngest soldier could be 17 years old.
Really?
Could be 17 years old. You can join the United States Army at 17 years old. So they're probably somewhere between 17 and 25, but they're young. Sometimes they don't even have a driver's license. And we teach them how to drive tanks at a very high level. It's pretty impressive what they do.
And to that point, how would you orient yourself in that direction if you are a fresh recruit to the Army?
How would you orient yourself?
How would you tell them, I want to drive a tank?
Oh yeah, when you show up, you talk to a recruiter, you tell them exactly that, and they'll find a path for you.
James, any thoughts? Well, you mentioned something when we were watching, what I want to bring up with you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of music is playing.
Yeah.
Bands are a part of the Army. We've seen plenty of bands. Music is also part of armed service carrying out missions. You listen to music, it motivates, it's part of your life. You were talking about that a moment ago.
Yeah,
when we were listening and watching.
That's right. I was commenting on that Metallica was playing during, we were seeing, Abrams pass by during the representative of the Gulf War. And I was commenting on how it's interesting the connection the military has to music. In Vietnam, Vietnam probably has one of the best selections of albums. You think of Creedence Clearwater.
A lot of soundtrack flows through Vietnam.
And as soon as you hear a Creedence Clearwater song come on, you immediately think of, Huey helicopters coming in. For the Gulf War, it definitely was Metallica. For mine, oddly, I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. The big song that year was Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. So it was slightly different to go from a combat situation to come back to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and Miley Cyrus is everywhere. So, but it's interesting that each era of service has a soundtrack to it.
Sergeant Major Chris Melinex, did you have a soundtrack?
Well, all sorts of stuff, whatever the soldiers wanted to hear. And we had different, before you'd go out on missions, the guys would have something playing, and it was always perfect.
A lot of Britney Spears.
But what we saw earlier today is we saw General Pershing created the Pershing Zone, and they were activated in 1922, and they had a tremendous role in entertaining troops overseas during World War II, because they didn't have access to all those things. And so the band would go overseas, and to keep morale high and keep soldiers motivated, they had a huge role in that.
And then if you look at the Revolutionary War, the band was integrated with infantry units. And it wasn't just for morale and playing music, it was to keep them in step. It was to keep their formations in step so that the officer in charge of those formations could lead them into battle. So you know, people think about, well, why would I carry a drum into battle? At that point in time, it was a very important role of keeping everybody in line and everybody in step.
And that flew through the Civil War as well.
It did, because their muskets could only shoot very short distances, and so that formation was critical.
So that music is not just for amusement, entertainment, it is for formation cohesion.
Absolutely. It's used as a form of like hand and arm signals. So if you hear a certain cadence or you hear a certain trumpet blow, it is informing troops in the formation to perform an action. So it's not just music, it's not just keeping people in step, but it's you know, muskets are one shot and you immediately have to reload.
What are we seeing right now, Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex?
So that is a Bradley fighting vehicle that we're looking at.
How does that differ from a tank?
So
I know that's a very simple.
So this carries it's got armor. It carries infantry squad in the back, and it can deliver them alongside those tanks to the battlefield. So those soldiers can get out and have a huge role in protecting those tanks.
And when we were talking a moment ago, before we went back to live microphones, you were talking about something called an ISV. What is that? And if people see it, what should they look for?
Yeah, so you saw the light-skinned vehicle open, completely open, has about 9 seats in it. And we're transitioning right now in the Army Transition Initiative, we're transitioning our light brigade combat teams to mobile combat teams. And those mobile combat teams will be outfitted with that ISV to all of our traditional light BCTs.
On the viewing stand just a moment ago, ladies and gentlemen, there was Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy. And those are the ISVs right there that Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex was just talking about. The reason I name-checked Steve Witkoff is because as special envoy for President Trump in many different hot zones around the world, the hottest zone right now is Iran because of the ongoing conflict between Iran and Israel. There had been another round of talks between the United States emissaries led by Steve Witkoff and Iranian officials over the future of Iran's nuclear program. Those were to occur tomorrow. Clearly, Steve Witkoff's presence on the viewing stand here in Washington Saturday evening, East Coast time, indicates very strongly, as the Iranians signaled yesterday, those talks will not occur. Steve Witkoff will not be in the region to engage with Iranians directly. We're going to continue to look and listen as the parade continues.
They are showcasing the Army's Transformation in Contact Initiative, a program that allows the Army to rapidly test, evaluate, and equip our soldiers with the newest technologies. Modern, mobile, and mission-ready, the Bastogne Brigade continues to adapt to new threats while staying rooted in the fierce resilience that defined its birth. They are carrying the next-generation squad weapons, the XM7 and XM250, both equipped with the XM157 optic. The vehicles are the infantry squad vehicle, a new mobility asset that can rapidly move through most terrain types. The trailer is the S-MET, and it's capable of carrying heavy loads under its own power through restrictive terrain. This platoon is equipped with 3 types of small unmanned aerial systems. They are the Ghost X, located on the S-MET, the C-100, and right above us there, the X-10D, which are flying above the formation right now.
So, Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, we see drones, we see the ISVs you just talked about, and these particular weapons that were being carried by the soldiers in front of the ISVs. Help my audience understand what those weapons are. They look like very serious business.
Yeah, so what the Army's doing right now is transforming. When we're transforming, we're getting modern equipment in the hands of the soldiers right now so they can learn how to use it. We can build a baseline of knowledge across the force, and because these are the things that we're going to see in the next fight. So you see the small UASs there. That's the XM7 that they're carrying, and the XM7 will replace the M4. It's a 6.8 round, and M4 on the qualification range, you're shooting 300-meter targets. The XM7 soldiers are shooting 1,400 meters all day long, so significant game changer.
James, you were mentioning something about suppressors and the wider application thereof for those in infantry positions.
Yeah, so the thing I noticed about these weapons is that the majority of them, almost all of them, have suppressors on them. In my time, 2006 to 2014, suppressors usually you only saw with our sniper platoons. So your regular infantry are getting more suppressed weapons, and their optics are better. Their optics are way better. Like when I came in, I trained on iron sights, and then moved up to using scopes and more advanced scopes. But the Army is you're starting out with it now. The other thing is as the Sergeant Major said, the unmanned aerial or the aerial systems, the drones. That is a significant advantage to an infantry squad. If you can imagine being on a combat patrol and perhaps there's an ambush up ahead, and you could scout ahead to see that they've set up an ambush for you, and you can go ahead and react to it.
I'm sure you would agree with that, Chris.
I do, yes. And it's what it's doing is it's creating a level of situational awareness where we've never had before in the history of the Army, and it's allowing us to identify the enemy very quickly and engage much faster, creating standoff and increasing survivability and most importantly, increasing lethality.
Nicole Killian joins us again from the parade route. Nicole, catch us up on what you're seeing, what's happening.
Yeah, well, Major, as we near the end of the parade, the crowd has thinned out just a little bit. I don't know if you can tell behind me, but there are a few folks who are still sticking around, including Glendon, who came all the way from Missouri. So tell me why you decided to come out to this parade.
Absolutely. So right now I'm interning here in D.C. It's been an amazing opportunity for myself, but I wanted to be here for others. My grandfather was in the military, 3rd of the 187th Rakkasan, and I wanted to come here to honor him today, as well as everybody else that has protected our country. So this is absolutely fantastic. Everybody here is really excited. We're just here to honor the troops.
And so what do you think of the parade thus far? What's been your favorite part?
I mean, there's so much. Seeing the improvements in military technology is amazing. Seeing the support of everybody here has been really uplifting. I've been taking photos all day, sending them to my papa. So this is just, everything is amazing.
And tell me, I mean, obviously we're kind of now, and actually we just are seeing some of the more futuristic equipment in the military, including a robotic dog that just passed by us. But, you talked a little bit about the evolution of the Army and its transformation. I mean, what do you make of that in terms of the world that we're living in now? Obviously, this parade is coming against the backdrop of a lot of unrest across the country. Encapsulate that for us in terms of, what do you think this moment in history means to you?
Absolutely. So as the technology progresses, a lot of people become more fearful of the capabilities. But to me, what I see is a display of great defense. As technology continues, we are coming up with better defense systems. So seeing things like a robotic dog walk right past me, it makes me feel confident that those in charge are making sure that the advancements are being made so that we are secure. So definitely feel better that there's robot dogs out there.
And lots of other bells and whistles, too, for that matter. And just to ask you a little bit more, what do you take away from this moment? We're obviously looking at some choppers now flying overhead, but what do you take away from this moment?
What this moment tells me is that morale is back in America. All these people are here for the purpose of supporting the troops and supporting our country. I think that this brings a lot of morale. It reminds us where we came from. 250 years is a long time, but it's still a very short history for such a great country. So I think everybody is enjoying what they're doing now, but we're going to be looking forward to the future saying, hey, we're Americans. Let's keep moving.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and adding your perspective. We really appreciate it. All right, Major, we'll send it back to you.
Nicole Killian, thank you so much for that interview. Apache helicopters above Washington, D.C. as the parade continues. And on a split screen in Los Angeles, the Sheriff's Department in Los Angeles has declared an unlawful assembly. As we indicated a moment ago, that was probably what was going on because a protest that occurred there earlier in the day, the term of that protest is over, and now local authorities are trying to assert local control on the streets of downtown Los Angeles near the Federal Building, where we find Adam Yamaguchi, who's been with us all afternoon. Adam?
Yes, hi, Major. Since I last joined you a few minutes ago, the police have issued have declared this an unlawful assembly and have moved in. You can see just out front here, the sheriffs have arrested and are cuffing somebody on the ground there. Actually, there are two people who are being cuffed. I would say in the last 5-7 minutes or so, things have sort of taken a turn. The police, again, when they issued the dispersal orders, the crowd did not move, and after about 5 or so minutes they lost their patience, started to deploy tear gas as well as flashbangs, and we're seeing that playing out right here. They are trying to push the crowd and disperse the crowd further up the streets.
Adam, I sympathize with the difficulty. No, Adam, do not apologize. You are in the middle of an urban situation in which either tear gas or flashbangs or both are being deployed. It's hard to keep one's breath under control in those circumstances, and you are giving us visual evidence of local authorities trying to regain control of the streets of Los Angeles. If you can talk, please do so. If not, I'll take it back. Let me know.
Yeah, I'm just going to walk away from the scene just a bit here. Try to catch my breath. I can see a couple people on the ground being arrested by sheriff's deputies. The crowd has largely dispersed from this corner, but there are probably still a good couple thousand people out on the streets here. And we're just kind of working our way through the flashbangs and the tear gas that is heavy in the air here. Clearly this is an escalation in just the last couple minutes.
Adam, I want you to catch your breath, get to a safe location, and we will get back to you as events require. But just to underscore the point, this is the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department declaring this an unlawful assembly, and with the Los Angeles Police Department at its side, attempting to regain control of a small section of streets around the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. This is not the National Guard, this is not the Marines, this is local authorities exercising local control consistent with their mission to not only protect public safety, but regain control of the streets around the federal courthouse in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, back here in Washington, D.C., we saw Apache helicopters flying overhead. We now see other helicopters. Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, what are those helicopters we just saw?
That's your CH-47 Chinook. We also saw Little Birds. We saw Blackhawks. We saw the H-64s.
And we also saw for a brief moment, and I can sympathize with those in the audience who might have found it a little disconcerting to see a robot dog on Constitution Avenue in the heart of Washington, D.C., and hear flashbangs and see tear gas in the streets of Los Angeles. Talk to us about the robot dog.
Yeah, so the robot is, that one particularly can be used to go inside of a structure and look for something, some sort of explosive device. It creates situational awareness before we send soldiers into that room, ultimately to save lives.
Can someone in another location, another dumb question, but that's my specialty, see what the dog sees?
Yeah, they have a screen and they can see exactly what the dog sees.
Really? And and therefore obviously can move the dog?
That's right.
Laterally, or?
They can move it wherever they need to go.
Side to side or straight and back?
Yep. All directions.
And that gives you, meaning those who are on point, again, like the drones, eyes on something without immediate peril.
Exactly.
And that changes the scenario.
That increases survivability of our humans, which is our most important resource, and it creates situational awareness that we've never had before, and significantly increases lethality on the battlefield.
Joining us now, Colonel Marty Miners with the 101st Airborne Division, which was part of the parade. Colonel, thank you so much for speaking with us. Your assessment of the afternoon and early evening as you've seen it play out.
Hey, good afternoon, sir. It's been a lot of fun. We've been out here most of the day. Our soldiers are having a good time, meeting a lot of people, explaining what they do. And now, of course, the parade is ongoing, and they get to show the world what they do.
Colonel, you referred to me as a sir. Just for the audience's edification, I don't do this very often, but just understand, I'm a major in name only. For the purposes of this conversation,
Okay.
I'm a major in name only. Going on 63 years, never promoted, but always a major. Colonel, thanks for laughing along with that. Thank you for indulging me in that. You mentioned the importance of the sense of not only the Army being visible, but the Army seeing support from the street. Talk to me about that back and forth. The country seeing the Army and the Army seeing the country.
Sure. So, I mean, we're extremely proud to be here. Soldiers from across the entire United States. So that's outstanding soldiers, outstanding teams, outstanding equipment. Normally, you would have to drive to Kentucky or Kansas or somewhere else to see that. But now we bring everything together at the nation's capital. You know, march down the street, really show Americans and people around the world who we are and what we do. Our soldiers are having an excellent time. The other day we asked for volunteers, like who has never been to DC, and almost everyone raised their hand. So they're having a lot of fun coming out, exploring the city and really seeing the sights.
And it's your belief that those who are participating really want to be here. This is not an obligation or a hassle for them.
No, they're having a great time. I mean, they have to do a little bit of work. They have to do some marching and some preparations, but they're having fun exploring the nation's capital, representing the U.S. Army.
And what does the involvement of the 101st mean to you and its history in our country?
Yes, sir. So it means a lot. The 101st has a rich history going all the way back to World War II, Vietnam, Desert Storm. In every major conflict, the 101st has been involved in. So I'm actually really glad you asked me that, because not only are we marching for the soldiers of today, we're marching for the 250 years of veterans that go before us. So we're not only honoring, you know, today's Army, I'm honoring the veterans that went before me and really shaped the Army into what it is now.
And when you think about what the Army is now and what it could be, what thoughts come to your mind?
Yes, sir. So, sorry, I keep calling you sir. Major, you just saw the robot dogs. You saw the infantry squad vehicles. You saw the drones. I think there's some really, really exciting stuff going on for the future of the Army. New technology, new equipment, new weapons. Those make us more effective, but they also keep our soldiers safer, right? A drone can fly 20 kilometers where in the past you would have to put a soldier in harm's way. So I think we're getting more effective, more lethal, more ready every single day.
Colonel Marty Miners, 101st Airborne. You can always call me sir. Trust me, in my career I've been called much worse than that.
Okay.
Colonel, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Nicole Killian
Thanks,
also again joins us from the parade route. I'm happy to bring her back in because you have a special guest with you. Nicole?
Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, that's right, Major. We are actually now joined by retired Master Sergeant Brooks, who traveled all the way from Hawaii just for this parade. Thank you so much for your service, and give me your impressions.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was even bigger than the Desert Storm parade my dad was in, and just didn't know DC was so hot, but it was really impressive, and I'm glad we got to pull it all together, and thank you for showing up and covering it.
And tell me a little bit about your service. I mean, obviously we saw various eras of the Army as we marked its 250 years, but tell us a little bit more about some of the areas where you served.
Yes, ma'am. I joined back in 1983, and then I got into the 19th group early 1990, And then we went to Haiti in '95 to restore democracy. And then we were one of the first Guard groups to mobilize to go to Afghanistan in 2002 and 3. And then we were home just 4 months, and we stood up a Theater Special Operations Detachment Korea to go to Iraq. So we were there 3 and 4. And then all the years in between, we would do FID missions, Foreign Internal Defense, with, you know, the Thai Rangers and Malaysian Commandos and ROC Marines from Korea and stuff like that. We'd train over in the Orient. And do a lot of stuff in Alaska too, and jump out airplanes and invade country. It was the best job I ever had.
And so what did you make of some of these units as they passed by? What stood out to you?
Yeah, I've also been doing a lot of contracting over in Hawaii, and we did the JPMRC, the Joint Readiness Training. So a lot of these units have came through Hawaii and done the training, especially the 11th Arctic Airborne. They're always come from Alaska to Hawaii, and then the 25th ID in Schofield Barracks. They do a lot of training out there with the jungle training, and just getting to see all the new cool guy equipment. It's like, oh man. I remember driving the little Jeep around, you know, when the very first one's coming out, and then now they got all this cool guy gear, and it's just, you know, it makes you proud to be an American, to see these young men and women serving the country, you know, the 1%ers and all their sacrifice. It's just proud to be an American.
Yeah, and I was going to say, to that point, you know, obviously there was some controversy about the parade, about the equipment, would it damage the streets, how much this would cost, you know, was this something that the president just wanted for show? Obviously, the focus is on honoring the 250 years of the Army and its founding, but why does a parade like this matter?
Well, the big thing is, like back in Desert Storm, it was such a big event, and then now we've did the war on terrorism for over 25 years, and so just to see all the support for these guys that, you know, and then also the Vietnam veterans too, getting to be in the parade, the marching and stuff, and what it does is it brings a coalition and everybody together, and starts building our esprit de corps back in 9/11 when we saw the towers fall. You know, we all need to get back, you know, hey, we're American first, not blue or red. And I think events like this get it all together. And most of these guys, they're going to get paid today anyway, because they're getting paid, you know, 375 days a year, 24 hours a day. And so they're already getting paid. It's just, and then the logistics to do this, a lot of these young kids don't have the experience. So to mobilize all these heavy equipment and all the equipment, the logistics, the property book, the commanders and the first sergeants, you know, and then also, you know, flying them over and doing all that. So it's really, really good training. And yeah, you know, trained to maintain and sustain.
All right. Well, again, we thank you so very much for your service, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Major, back to you.
Nicole Killian, thank you so much. Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, who's at the table with me, I'm so happy you've been here all afternoon and early evening. As the sun begins to set and dusk begins to fall over the nation's capital, we're about to see a re-enlistment ceremony. President Trump will go through that with those who are re-enlisting. Walk us through what's going to happen.
Yeah, so he's going to...
Mr. President, First Sergeant Norton, reporting for duty, sir. Ready to commence the ceremony as directed.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Congratulations. Congratulations. Welcome to the United States Army, and have a great life. Thank you very much. Have a great life. Thank you.
Sergeant Major Mullinex, walk us through that.
Yeah, so they simply pledge an oath to protect the Constitution at any cost.
And follow orders from their line officers.
That's right.
And that is, the president's in there, but also lots of other layers as well.
That's exactly right. They made a commitment, a very, very deep commitment to their country, one that very few Americans will ever have the opportunity to do. And that's when that journey begins for them.
And the guest that Nicole Killian was just talking to, who came all the way from Hawaii for this parade, talked about the 1%. That's a different 1% than the other 1%, the high-income earners in America that we were talking about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. For the audience who may not know what that 1% means, help us understand.
So the 1% is the 1% who is currently serving their nation. So only about 1% of all the Americans out there, only about 1% of them are currently serving their country. And like I said before, there's 80% of those 1%ers are people that came from a military background. And so the Army's goal is to also make sure that the rest of America knows who the Army is, that there's opportunities out there. Be all you can be is a real thing. And what's great about the United States Army and really the United States military is you can do whatever you want to do. You want to be a soldier, you want to drive a tank, there's an opportunity for you. If you realize, hey, I want to be a soldier, but I want to be an officer, the Army has a path for you. At the end of the day, all you got to do is put in the work, and you can do whatever you want in the United States Army.
Eleanor Watson joins us again from the Pentagon. Ellie, what do you got?
I wanted to talk, you asked me earlier, and I didn't answer your question about the preps for the parade, and CBS did talk to some of the crews of the tanks who started practicing their formations back in March, and then some of the tanks have been repainted and gotten new tracks so that they look presentable for the parade and also do minimum damage to the roads. So that's been several months in the making. The tanks started getting on trains a few weeks ago at the end of May and arrived in D.C. actually Monday night. So that's also been a ways in the making. The soldiers started arriving on Sunday. As you mentioned, they're staying in government buildings, sleeping on cots with MREs. It's been a long week for them and a long day, actually, because today some of them started showing up to be on scene around 6 a.m., a full 12 hours before the parade started. But as everything we've heard so far in the parade, I'm sure they're going to think it's worth it.
Eleanor Watson, Ellie, thank you so much from the Pentagon. Willie James Inman is at the reviewing stand. Willie James.
Hey there, Major. Well, we just witnessed that re-enlistment ceremony with the president making remarks just moments ago. From my vantage point, we could see the soldiers gathered before the president of the United States to take that oath. And it was a moment where the crowd gave a large round of applause, perhaps the loudest applause that we saw here tonight. We did, of course, see an applause for the president when he walked out, the vice president. And there's a lot of excitement here, in large part because, for the most part, many Americans probably have never seen some of the equipment that we've seen here before. I can speak for myself. I've never seen a tank move down a street or move at all. And so it's certainly one way that the American public can get their eyes on the devices that America uses to keep us safe, but also the people at the center of this focus of this parade, those who serve our country day in and day out.
Willie James Inman, and to your point, there is understandable fascination with the military equipment. Some in our country might regard it as somewhat giving them a moment of fear, but it is here, it is real, the Army is real, its equipment is real, and as we've discussed all afternoon, the Army wants America to see the equipment that is real and that it uses. What we're going to see now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a run of show. Musical performances and then remarks from President Trump. Let's listen into the musical performances.
Yeah, she wants me. Try my best not to fall where she falls into me. We all need some kind of fix. For me, she's the one to pick. Nothing else will do the trick. She's all I need. She's my pretty little poison. My heartache in the night with a kiss on her lips just like cyanide. Yeah, she came with a warning, but I didn't mind. I'll go out on that high every time. She's my pretty little poison. My pretty little poison. For some, I guess it's alcohol. I don't want none of y'all. I just want you. No, I just want you. My pretty little poison. My heartache in the night with a kiss on her lips just like cyanide. Yeah, she came with a warning, but I didn't mind. I'll go out on that high every time. She's my pretty little poison. My pretty little poison. She's my pretty little poison. Thank you. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I'm nervous, but I would just like to say thank you so much for having me here tonight. I am just so fortunate to be here in front of y'all, and thank you guys so much for what you guys do. And honestly, happy birthday, y'all. Happy birthday. This next song was loved by y'all, so if you know the words, please sing along. This song's called Ride the Lightning, y'all. Mama always said I was born on the right side. Yes, she did. One foot in the flames and the other trying to walk the line. Can't say I never saw it coming. I could see the warning signs. Mama always said I was born on the wild side. I guess Mama was right. 'Cause when the clock strikes midnight, gonna ride the lightning, feel the thunder, till the darkness pulls me under. Gonna fly on wings of fire, great and good Lord lifts me high. Singing, oh, when they call me on. Singing, oh, when they call me on. Gonna ride a lightning. There's a man in a black coat standing at a crossroads with a pen in his hand and a long list of lost souls. They say he flips a coin, fools let the fools go. There's a man in a black coat standing at a crossroads. I hope he lets me pass by when I close my eyes. Gonna ride the lightning, feel the thunder, till the darkness pulls me under. Gonna fly on wings of fire, breathing good, Lord, lifts me high. Singing, oh, when they call me home. Singing, oh, when they call me home. Gonna ride the lightning, ride the lightning, ride the We got one more chorus, y'all. Gonna ride the lightning, feel the thunder, till the darkness pulls me under. Gonna fly on wings of fire, breathing good, Lord, lifts me high. Singing, oh, when they call me home. Singing, oh, when they call me home. Gonna ride the lightning. Gonna ride the lightning. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody here, everybody that has attended tonight, I just want to say thank you so much. And I'll leave y'all with this. I'm Warren Zatters, y'all. Thanks for having me. It has been my honor, ladies and gentlemen. I really mean that. Thank you so much. Happy birthday to the Army. Happy birthday to our President, Donald Trump. Amen, y'all. God bless America, baby!
He said his name. In case you didn't hear it, Warren Zatters, the song they just sang, Ride the Lightning, which, considering the weather forecast later this evening in the nation's capital, might be more on the nose than the performers even imagined. Want to go over to the Pentagon? Eleanor Watson is there. Ellie, talk to our audience about how the Army views this in relationship to the Commander-in-Chief. The Commander-in-Chief is there. The Commander-in-Chief is participant. He's going to give remarks here in a moment. But the Army regards this as an Army celebration.
That's right, Major. The Army has been very clear to say that they do not expect to even mention President Trump's birthday. They don't want even the optics of this being a political event. Out of all of the controversies over the past week leading into this parade, you have LA, you have the parade falling on the president's birthday. The one that Army officials are most concerned about is the speech earlier this week at Fort Bragg, where it was a kickoff, as Nicole said earlier, to the Army 250th birthday, but where the soldiers behind him were acting overtly political. They were not only cheering, which is one thing, but they were also booing to President Trump's lines about Gavin Newsom, about Democratic California leaders. And that is part of the reason why the Army is very intentional today not to wish the president a happy birthday.
Eleanor Watson at the Pentagon, thank you so much. I want to go back to Los Angeles to our Adam Yamaguchi, who has been covering an effort by the Sheriff's Department and the Los Angeles Police to disperse the crowd because they have now declared an unlawful assembly in downtown Los Angeles near the federal courthouse. Adam.
Yes, hi, Major. So since we last were with you, there's been probably several more rounds of flashbangs and tear gas deployed. And I'm going to stop around here because it's starting to get very, very thick with that tear gas. But the protesters are here holding the line against the LA sheriffs and the LAPD here. And what seems to be happening is that as the police and the sheriffs deploy the flashbangs and the tear gas, what they're trying to do is essentially box in this group and disperse them. And it seems to be paying off. This crowd is much thinner than it was just about 15 or so minutes ago. There are probably, within this quarter-mile radius here, the protest groups have sort of been splintered into a few different groups, and that, based on what we've seen over the last week or so, seems to be the strategy that has been most effective for the police here. Separate the groups and disperse them, and eventually the crowds thin out and people go home. But right now we kind of still are in the thick of it here. You see, I would say probably within this corner here, there are probably still a couple thousand people. Many of the protesters, you can hear them shouting, peaceful protest, peaceful protest. And we've seen the tear gas being deployed. We've seen protesters kick it back towards the police. And we were just downwind of it just a few moments ago, so we had to retreat. But we're now back at this, essentially the line between the police and the protesters here, and things have calmed down here for the time being. Major.
And Adam, just out of curiosity, is it something that is regularly occurring in which the either sheriff or police department there notify audibly the crowd that this is an unlawful assembly and they should disperse?
Yes, Major. They have, on a number of occasions, on the loudspeaker, declared the unlawful assembly and have given notice that they will deploy chemical projectiles to the crowd. And the crowd, typically, you'll see some people retreat, the people put on their masks, but by and large, until that is deployed, people pretty much hold the line.
Adam Yamaguchi in Los Angeles, thank you so much for your continuous coverage and eyes on that evolving situation. We're going to go back to the reviewing stand here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, as J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, prepares to introduce President Trump.
But I would get in trouble if I didn't mention that it's also my wedding anniversary. And so to my lovely wife, I love you, honey. Happy anniversary. And thank you for everything that you do for our country. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief of the United States military, President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you to Vice President Vance, and thank you to our wonderful First Lady, and above all, thank you to the greatest, fiercest, and bravest fighting force ever to stride the face of this earth, the United States Army. Thank you very much. Because the Army keeps us free, you make us strong, and tonight you have made all Americans very proud. They're watching from all over the world, actually. Made them all very proud. Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too. That's what we're doing tonight. And watching this magnificent display, our souls are filled with gratitude for every generation of warriors who have worn the uniform all the way back to the very beginning. So to every veteran across our land, and right here in our nation's capital, including 6 recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. We love you, we honor you, and we salute your noble service to our flag and to our country. As we celebrate tonight, we also think of the hundreds of thousands of Army soldiers who have made the supreme sacrifice for our nation and selflessly laid down their lives in every war, from the Revolution to the War on Terror. To the Gold Star families with us today, the courage of your heroes is the bedrock on which our entire nation stands. We thank you. Yes, we thank you. Today we commemorate an event that did not just change American history, but changed the history of the entire world. With the creation of America's Army on June 14th, 1775, liberty got its shield and the freedom got its sword. Those first Army patriots in the American Revolution fought against a fearsome enemy and impossible odds, but they were armed with a righteous cause. They were led by an indomitable commander, a truly great man, General George Washington, and they were united by an eternal creed. Their motto was victory or death. Over the past 2.5 centuries, our warriors have shown unrivaled valor on fields of battle around the globe. With the frostbitten feet and bloody fist, they have marched into the flames and fury of combat, charged up mountains, stormed beaches, waded through torrents of gunfire, and leapt into skies thick with smoke and shrapnel. The U.S. Army has driven bayonets into the heart of sinister empires, crushed the ambitions of evil tyrants. Beneath the threads of American tanks, it's done so well, it's done so much, and sent the devil himself flying into full retreat. Time and again, America's enemies have learned that if you threaten the American people, our soldiers are coming for you. Your defeat will be certain, your demise will be final, and your downfall will be total and complete. Because our soldiers never give up, never surrender, and never, ever quit. They fight, 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 and they win, win, win. And that's why no institution in history has entered more names into the roster of American heroes than the U.S. Army, the Congressional Medal of Honor, more than anyone or anything. There was Mad Anthony Wayne, asked by George Washington to lead a daring midnight raid up the cliffs of Stony Point with unloaded muskets and only their bayonets to fight the redcoats. Mad Anthony replied, "Issue the order, sir, and I will storm into hell for you." Then there was the Civil War general, John Corse, shot in the face in combat. He fired off a message to his commander: "I am short a cheekbone and one ear, but I am able to whip the hell out of all of them." He stayed on the front lines, it seemed forever. In World War II, there was the great Creighton Abrams, besieged on all sides by the Nazis at the Battle of the Bulge. He boldly proclaimed, "They've got us surrounded again, the poor bastards." This is the fighting spirit and unyielding force of the U.S. Army. It has never changed, and it will never, ever change, because there is no earthly force more powerful than the brave heart of a U.S. infantryman or an Army Ranger, paratrooper, or Green Beret. They are the best, they are the finest. From Bunker Hill to San Juan Hill, from Gettysburg to Guadalcanal, from Yorktown to Shiloh, and from the trenches of the Argonne to the mountains of Afghanistan, the Army has forged a legacy of unmatched courage, untold sacrifice, and unequaled and undying glory. Our soldiers have poured out their blood by the bucketful on Missionary Ridge and Heartbreak Ridge, on the sands of Sicily, Normandy, and the Philippines, and on the dusty streets of Da Nang, Baghdad, and Fallujah. Thanks to their extraordinary service and devotion, 250 years later, America stands tall, America stands proud, and America stands free. We're the hottest country in the world right now. And our country will soon be greater and stronger than ever before. Down through history, we've been blessed beyond words by this valiant legion of Army warriors and patriots, heroes and legends. And tonight we affirm with unwavering certainty that in the years ahead and in every generation hence, whenever duty calls and whatever danger comes, the American soldier will be there. No matter the risk, no matter the obstacles, our warriors will charge into battle. They will plunge into the crucible of fire, and they will seize the crown of victory, because the United States of America will always have the grace of Almighty God and the iron will of the United States Army. Congratulations to everybody. We love our country. We've never done better. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Army, and God bless America. And now I'd like to ask our great First Lady to join me at the podium. Thank you very much, everybody.
Remarks from President Trump running just about 8 minutes, underscoring the valor, heroism, and long history, 250 years of the United States Army, and indicating the importance of political leadership over the United States military because, yes, there were notable victories in World War I, World War II, but Korea, Vietnam, the global war on terror at times fought to a stalemate, not because the Army didn't do its job, but because political leadership may not have provided the mission that they were capable of achieving. The connection between political leadership and valor on the battlefield always continuous. There is a flag presentation ceremony going on right now. Let us listen.
Flown over our nation's capital in free fall during the Army's 250th birthday celebration.
Also worth noting that what the Army wanted to achieve on this day and with this parade is something that was nonpartisan, that was an evaluation, a celebration, a look into the United States Army, present, future, and past. And that has, in the main, been achieved because much of the crowd that came to observe the parade, as we are been told by our reporters on the scene, dispersed. So it was not, in the main, a Trump event. It was a U.S. Army event, which our Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex has said throughout was one of the goals.
It was. Today it was awesome. Our troops looked amazing. I'm a Sergeant Major. I'm not easily impressed. And I tell you what,
detachment, you're not easily impressed.
That's right. And our soldiers looked outstanding. I couldn't be more proud to be here and watch them today with you, Major. So thank you.
And to underscore the point that this is about an institution that serves a constitutional republic, not a party, not an individual.
That's right. You know, our Commander-in-Chief was describing something that resonates with me really well. He said, mission first, never quit, never surrender, never leave a fallen comrade. What he was describing is the warrior ethos. And every day we aspire to live by that ethos. It's part of our journey, and it's a way of life. It's very important to us.
James, any thoughts?
Yeah, the other part, so there's two sides to serving in the military. One is service and one is sacrifice. Every person sacrifices. Soldiers often don't get the opportunity to take stock of all that they've lost in service to country. But if they did, you're talking about sacrificing time with family, sacrificing time watching your kids grow up. You're missing birthdays. You're missing wedding anniversaries. You are I mean, there is, if they really took stock of everything, it's a sacrifice. And then, you know, I'm reminded that not too far from where this parade ground is Arlington. Mm-hmm. And that in this crowd are Gold Star families who've made the ultimate sacrifice. There was a permanent shattering that has occurred on their family that could never be replaced. And so, you know, there's the service component, but there's also the sacrifice component that every service member, to some degree, experiences.
And Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, that is another echoing effect of a day like today, to not just acknowledge the living, the soldiers who impressed you so much with their discipline, their formation and the like, but also reflect on those who have, as others have said eloquently, an open seat at the table.
That's right. It's all about that. It's about honoring those who served before us, who made the ultimate sacrifice, and most importantly, never forgetting them.
And there's a conversation that goes on, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Sergeant Major Chris Mullinex, but I've talked to some veterans, particularly from Iraq and Afghanistan, who hear "thank you for your service" and wonder what people are actually saying. And I've had some friends of mine in the Army say, you know, I'd much rather someone say, "Thank you for serving. I chose to serve, I volunteered, I knew what I was getting into." Service sounds kind of artificial. They would prefer to hear something else. What's your thoughts on that? And James, feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, I think part of it is because we become very uncomfortable because it's not about us. It's about the team. Everything is about the team. It's never about the individual. So it feels a little bit uncomfortable when somebody hears you say, when somebody says thank you for your service. But I think what's important is, in response to that, you know, it's because they're worth it.
James?
Yeah, I've always, speaking as a veteran, I've always felt uncomfortable. I know that when people tell me that, they're coming from a good place. And I know what they mean, but I've always felt comfortable, and it's exactly for what the Sergeant Major said. It's about the person to your left and right. It's a person, you know, I have many friends,
Yeah.
over in Arlington.
Right. That's part of this conversation.
Sorry.
That's part of this reality.
Yeah, and so that's all baked into that. So I always feel uncomfortable about that because, you know, if I could often, and look, I'm not in the business of making recommendations for people's behavior, but if I could just once, you know, I wear a memorial bracelet, and a lot of veterans do, and maybe even another question could be could you tell me about who that person is?
Right.
Because I would love to tell you about the person on my memorial bracelet. And I know other service members, they would love to tell you about their friend who's no longer there or a person that they served with.
And Sergeant Major Mullinex, this day is sort of a way of getting past that first thing, which sounds to some veterans who've talked to me about it like a cliche. Thank you for your service. It just sounds like a throwaway line. This is part of a broader conversation I know the Army hopes will ensue.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're off to you know, our Army is doing fantastic.
And to James's point, it comes from a good place, but it doesn't always land the way people think it might.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something you just got to get comfortable hearing. And because, and you know, the other part of it is, I think we're uncomfortable, to your point, is we're here still living, and there's a little bit of regret there because we know so many who have paid that ultimate sacrifice. So it's just a very uncomfortable thing to hear. And part of that is you just got to get, it's an opportunity for us to pause and remember those who served before us.
And those I know who have served make that very point. I'm not the hero. The heroes were left behind. The heroes died. They're the ones next to me, the ones behind me, the ones just in front of me. Those were the heroes.
And our responsibility is to continue to tell their story.
And live out the mission they tried to accomplish, not just then and there, but for the future.
That's right.
Well, a big shift, you know, there's also been a shift in, I think, the larger society, which is, you know, if you take a look at Vietnam is a really good model. Mm-hmm. Vietnam veterans were not coming home to a welcoming American public. And I,
to put it mildly,
no, they were getting spit on. The military was telling them
instantaneous hostility upon returning home.
But there was a shift in society where people started to separate the soldier from the politics. that service members, again, and it goes back to the apolitical nature of the military and the Pentagon, that the military is there to follow orders and to defend the country, and that we don't the military doesn't have a say in the politics of it. And I think after Vietnam,
or the decisions made by the politicians about what to do or what not to do.
Right, and the behavior after Vietnam, there was a shift in American society that that they saw that you have to separate the soldier being sent to war from the politics or issues that sent them there.
And even before Vietnam, there was journalism and literature at the time. After Korean War, Americans frustrated that we didn't win, that it was a stalemate, that it was basically back to the same place it started after so many years. Well, it wasn't the soldiers' fault.
Right.
That was a set of decisions carried out by political leaders of two different parties. And that goes back to the apolitical nature of the Army. Sergeant Major Mullinex, hey, we carry out the mission. We carry it out to the fullest capabilities that we have, with the equipment we have and the personnel we have. And the politics, that's another realm.
That's right. And we got to learn. It's part of the journey. Learning to be apolitical, understanding that commitment that you made when you said, "I'm going to serve you signed up to serve your country and protect the Constitution and protect your nation," and learning that is part of the journey.
I'm going to ask the control room for a little bit of guidance here. We were expecting some measure of fireworks, but the weather might be intruding upon that. Control room, if you could give me any guidance on that.
For serving alongside my grandfather and my great-grandfather, for your service, for your country, for your family. And I just want to say thank you from a generation that may not have known your name, but I get to live in the freedom because of it.
I want to thank all the U.S. service members, men and women, and especially the Army for their 250th birthday. Thank you very much.
My grandpa served in the Army in World War II as part of the 82nd Airborne. Thank you, Army, for everything that you do.
My brother Rob and my son Alec both served in the U.S. Army. We thank you for your courage, your sacrifices, and the burdens that you may now carry.
Thank you so much for doing what you do, putting your lives on the line for other men like me to live the life I live.
I just want to say happy birthday to the U.S. Army, congratulating them on 250 years. I want to give a big shout out to my Uncle Zadie, who served in the Army, and thank you for all you do.
I'm very thankful for the dedication and the hard work of the men and women of the U.S. Army.
Hi, American soldiers. Thank you for all you do. Love you.
Our freedom is not free, and we know that we are free because of you and your efforts.
Thank you to our Army active duty and veterans for protecting our rights and freedoms. It comes at an immeasurable cost.
Wishing you the best. Happy birthday. Go on.
Happy birthday, Army. Thank you to everybody who's serving today and has served in the past.
Love you guys and girls. Thank you so much for everything you do.
A big thank you to the men and women that serve our country and everything you guys do for us.
Thank you, Army, and happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Army.
Happy birthday, Army.
Happy 250th.
So we are anticipating in the next few moments, if the weather cooperates, fireworks to culminate this 250th birthday celebration. Well, as I say the word fireworks, the sky lights up. I'm going to back away and let the fireworks speak for themselves.
when I raised my right hand, I swore an oath to every generation before me. I wear the same branch insignia as the soldiers who crossed the Delaware. Before there was a nation, there was an army.
We've seen what division costs.
I serve because unity is worth the fight.
I carry that legacy forward every time I put on this uniform.
Both of my
What happens when you get conversation over conflict?
Anyone that doesn't agree women should be in the submarine force has to ask themselves why they would think about that.
I think they've taught me to have grace and compassion.
When we follow the human side of the headline.
Life is a little bit different now.
It's going to take a while to get used to. And I say it to myself that I can't make this about me.
When we put people before politics.
What would happen if it was harder for Mexican residents to come over to work in Presidio?
I think we'd be in serious trouble.
Are you okay, ma'am?
What happens when you experience the story?
I'm shocked at how devastated this neighborhood is. How bad is it in your house?
Look at it.
When news takes you where the story happens.
We've just crossed into Lebanon.
Here in Chicago.
Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania.
When the world's best journalists come together to cover your world, you get the all-new CBS Evening News every weeknight.
Ready?
Yeah. Ready?
And 1, 2, 3. Hey!
I can see clearly now.
Look at his outfit. Amazing. Give me some love, baby.
We got a toy. Look at this.
Oh, no!
Time for another quick meal you can make any night of the week.
We've got tips to save on clothes, tech,
and more.
How I got here is nothing short of like a miracle.
Talent?
Talent?
It's a bright, bright, bright way to start your day.
See you on CBS Mornings.
Here comes a big one.
What I've seen, it's like chaos.
This is the pager that Hezbollah was using.
How was this possible?
Oh, come on.
Come on.
Whoa.
Wow.
Ask me the hard-hitting questions. I'm open to all of it.
60 minutes. Is this what you want?
60 minutes.
60 minutes!
It's time for the CBS News original 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS.
Hey everyone, I'm Tom Hansen. Welcome to The Weekender. Over the course of this episode, you'll see both me and my colleague Nancy Chen. But we begin our report in the Middle East. Israel and Iran traded a new round of strikes after Israel targeted Iranian nuclear facilities and military leaders. I spoke with the founder and president of Eurasia Group, Ian Bremmer, about what led to Israel's decision to launch its attacks. Ian, so good to see you. Great to have you on. Now, I want to start with this. In a video message, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he issued a directive to his security chiefs in November 2024, instructing them to